meeting for April, and I'll call the meeting in order. You kindly stand and join me in pledge allegiance. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to the Texas, one state under God, one and indivisible.
Thank you very much. All right, item number 2, receive comments from the general public. Anybody signed up? Okay. All right, Mike here today, in consideration for adjustments.
I don't have any.
We move on then, consent agenda. Do I have a motion and a second to accept the consent agenda?
I'll move.
Again,
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. All right, regular agenda. Well, item number 10.
we make that the very last item on the agenda.
There's no problem with that. Like you earned your money today.
You gotta stay for the whole meeting.
Yeah.
Ellen, sorry. I don't know.
You'll enjoy
It's
it.
our quorum early.
Item number 12, receive the San Jacinto River Authority Woodlands Division report.
Well, good morning. I have a few quick updates and I do have a brief presentation to walk through. No update on the infrastructure funding. No update on the Bear Branch Dam, just reading down the list right now. Everything's still status quo with those 2 items. The Bear Branch low flow vault replacement is under budget and on schedule. The Bear Branch monitoring report, there was a fence that was cut that was repaired over there, so that was taken care of. The wastewater strategic plan, there is no update at this point in time. We did the notice to proceed. What is it, April? I think it was at the end of our beginning of this month. So when we start that notice to proceed. Any items, any questions on those items before I move to a presentation?
Anybody have any
Yeah,
questions?
what was Bear Branch? The Bear Branch Reservoir?
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, so prior to the meeting, I passed out a couple documents. One is this black finder found public. The other is this PowerPoint presentation. So what this is time of the year that we go through our 10-year project plan with each of the MUDs. So the document that has the plastic on the front of it, I'm not going to go through in detail, but this is all of the detail behind the summary that I'm going to provide in the PowerPoint presentation. So this is the full 10 years worth of projects, water, wastewater, everything San Jacinto River Authority owns and operates in the Woodlands Division. So the Bear Branch Dam is not in this. For reference, I'm going to be going through the paper that I handed out, the PowerPoint. Now, this is a very large PowerPoint compared to previous years, but with so many new directors on various MUDs, we wanted to give a lot of backup information. So I don't plan to hit every page of this document, just because most of this y'all have seen year after year after year after year, but we still include it because it's good information for everyone. So I do want to move to page 2. Page 2 shows some of the headlines from papers across Texas that have had various water and wastewater related issues over the past year related to aging infrastructure, water leaks, failing generators, so on and so forth. And I put this in there because one thing the 10-year project plan does is be proactive, right? We want to fix things before they break and make sure everything stays working and so on and so forth. The other thing is, as you look at page 2, there's nothing about the woodlands in here, right? We, as well as y'all know, we try very hard with y'all to stay ahead of all of these items so we don't end up on the headline of any paper rating.
So you don't have a Magnolia issue.
I do not have the Magnolia issue. That's, yeah, I ran out of space.
And you don't have superior water in there.
Well, I do hear it a little bit though. Oh,
Yeah, on your next page.
I consider that award winning. So flipping over to page 3 and 4. Page 3 kind of shows the high level, 3 levels of service. You have no water, dirty water, or clean water, right? You all desire clean water. So page 4 is what we're showing what is experienced. Award-winning facilities, which I kind of looped in Superior Water Systems at Yawachee. Of course, limited to no service interruptions. There's only been one boil water notice in 50 years in the Woodlands. And that was not due to anything the Muds nor the River Authority did. It was a homeowner that had a faulty backflow preventer. That actually was in some mulch and they didn't tell y'all about it. So that one was nobody's.
That was isolated to one neighborhood though, right?
Isolated to one house.
One house.
One house.
Okay.
And so the way the system's set up, the entire Woodlands had to have a boil water notice because one house did something. Then, of course, the bottom right picture on page 4, it's a guy walking through with some camo. We try to stay outside, out of mind. One of the levels of service that we've always heard is we want to turn the water on in the morning without thinking about, is it clean? Is it going to be there? And then flush our toilets with it going away. So we try to do that without interfering in the daily commute. Pages 5, 6, and 7 talk about the asset management plan, talk about how the assets are scored and ranked annually. Page 8 is a high-level general selection and the buying process for everything under 25,000. We're asked a question quite often, it's okay, how are you going to solicit for bids, proposals? Are you going on the street? Anything professional or construction that's over 25,000 goes onto the street with a RFQ, RFP, request for qualifications, request for proposals for a competitive sale proposal. It's not always low bid we go for, we go better quality than lowest price. All right, moving to page 9. Page 9 is going to be the focus of the FY 24 to 33 project plan. So on the left-hand side, you see the wastewater system. As you know, for the past give or take 15 months, we've been talking about the strategic plan. That's the focus of the wastewater system. The water system focus is going to be the AC asbestos cement water line replacement. There's about 48, just over 48 miles of line to look to be replaced.
And in those lines that you're replacing, does the new pipe have longer life than 50 years?
Yes. So the PVC that's in the ground now has 75 to 100-year lifespan is estimated. Hasn't been out for 75 years, so it's still estimated. We're looking to replace it with HDPE, which is more flexible, and it's got about 75 to 100 years, just like PVC. The other reason we're going with HDPE is there's not as many joints. It's welded together, which is, one of the main problems that GRP lines had, as well as a lot in the Woodlands, is when it's constructed, where they put where the gaskets are, when the bellows fit, where they put it together. Eliminates that issue. All right, so on page 10, one thing we've added to the presentation is when we've given it before, it's like, okay, I've heard your presentation. What do you want from us? So we've gone through and we've added in what we're asking. So ask number 1 is to understanding funding needs for the R&R funded, fund funded via the SJRA Woodlands Division O&M budget annually. So the R&R fund is the cash funded portion of the project plan. So anything that we do immediately affects the rates the next budget cycle. So on page 11 and 12 show the R&R funding. So what you're looking at is over the 10 years, we're proposing just about $3 million worth of projects be cash funded. And what you can see here is new elevated storage tank, of course, well rehabs, generators, land acquisition we talked about last month, lift station rehab. These are all cash funded items that have less than a 30-year lifespan. If you bond fund something, it's at least 25 to 30 years. Don't want to be bond funding something that you dispose in year 20. So on page 12, what you can see is just kind of like a high level summary of the cash. So the R&R funded portion is 83 million. We have 21 million cash on hand for projects that were held because of the strategic plan. So over the next 10 years, we're looking at $62 million worth of needs funded at $6 million a year, which is what we are currently funding. So in the budget we're sitting in today, we're funding $6 million to R&R, meaning for the next 10 years, we're not seeing an increase in those funding. So that $6 million should hold us for the next 10 years, assuming the debt service projects we talk about stay in the debt service side. So Just as a reminder, last year, when we were talking about these items, we were looking to increase the R&R over a period of time to $10 million to cash fund more items than to bond fund items. But over the discussions of last year, we've moved stuff around to try to lessen rate impacts. So, questions so far? Okay. Page 13 is ask number 2. So on the first one, first ask, there's nothing that needs to be done. It's just information. So when you see the budget, and you see that 6 million, those projects is what it's going to be funding. Ask number 2 talks about going forward, the long term. At a future board meeting, authorize SJRA to sell debt for water and wastewater capital project replacements. Now, this goes back to one, the strategic plan, but also the AC water lines, as well as some other items we'll chat about. Moving to page 14. Page 14 just expands on what the ask is. So we've had the question before. It's okay, that's a broad statement, just authorize debt. What are you looking to do with that? So all the projects in the project plan labeled as debt service is what would be funded. One on page 14 talks more about the contracts and some of the high level specifics of geotechnical needs and so on and so forth. Pages 15, 16, and 17 talk about the AC water lines. What we want to do is kind of bring up and summarize what we've chatted about for the last 2 or 3 years and condense it to one document. So the concern with the AC water lines is the reliability of it. And so on the right side of page 15, you can see the age profile that a lot of the lines were installed in 75. They have a 50-year lifespan. You're about 48 years old on some of those. On the left-hand side, you'll see service life, some of the other concerns that we have when it's either very wet or very dry and the ground moves, that does move the AC water line. So when that does move it, it does break the collars, and then you start having leaks. Moving on from that, page 16 shows the map of all the AC water lines in the woodlands. Each colored segment is a different phase of replacement. This is a 10 to 12 year program. I say 10 to 12 years because the last contract would start in 10 years, but probably finish up in 12. So looking at that map, you can see I think there's 10 different phases over that 10-year period that spreads for the most part across the east side of the woodlands, mostly in this area here.
And most of these water lines next to streets, or are they buried under the streets?
Most of them are next to the street. One of the concerns is like Woodlands Parkway at 6 Pines and Woodlands Parkway. AC water line goes underneath Woodlands Parkway. It's not encased. So that's a concern. You know, that's a big concern. Under the waterway is PVC, but going down Grogan's Mill, 90% of it's in the dirt. Still have a lot of traffic impacts because there's no room to work. So we still have to shut down one lane to do the work, but not like GRP where we have to rip up the entire road and divert everything around.
On some of these AC lines, can you put inserts in them as opposed to replacing them?
So we're looking at pipe bursting. We started looking and saying, okay, let's dig up and replace it. Then we did look at doing some CIPP like we do on the sewer side. Difference is the sewer side has more capacity that we can give up. On the water side, if we do the insert, it takes our 12-inch line down to a 10-inch line. So that wouldn't work.
Is the N factor significantly different one to make up for part of that?
Yeah.
But look at how great Mud 1 is compared to the other ones. Particularly old Mud 40, all green. And Mud 2, just some yellow. It's very great.
So we were asked the question of, okay, these lines, are you starting to have more breaks? That's what page 17 shows. We went from 15 to 2022. And then of course, the black line is the trend line that goes up. So you can see there's not a whole lot of them that occur every year. I guess average is about probably 4, maybe 5 a year. But keep in mind the river authority lines are the big transmission lines. So if they go out, you could lose like the entire mall area. We had about 1,000 people out when a line broke on Woodland Parkway. So the bigger the line, more people on the service. Page 18 talks about our recommendations, everything we talked about before, replace all the AC lines over 10 to 12 years using HDPE being debt service funded. The very last bullet that you see there is the monitor the Woodlands Parkway line. The Woodlands Parkway line is this PVC line that runs from Kirkendall out to 2978. It's about 20 years old. Should have at least 50 years of life, but it was breaking every 3 to 4 years for a period of time. Knock on wood, it has not broken in the past 18 months or so. And so we may have gotten all the bad joints taken out. So what we've proposed is to push it off to the end of the 10 years and just monitor it. If it continues to break, then we'll pull it forward if y'all want us to, or we can leave it there and fix it when it comes. Page 19, more information on impacts of AC waterline breaks. And then page 20 is the project summary. So this takes everything we talked about before, as well as all the debt services in the bound document, and brings it up to term. So for the water system over this 10-year period, roughly 230 million. CAC water lines, that does include the Woodlands Parkway water line, a new well 40. That one is because wells have a 50-year lifespan, generally speaking. At 50 years, if you can't rehab it, you could basically slip line or put another pipe inside the casing that reduces capacity. Yes, sir.
You're saying that a new well is costing 9.5 million now?
Inflation and contingency over 10 years. I do not believe that number would be right.
What is it now?
Right now, it's 3 million.
Yeah, because when we formed the reserve, it was based on one well.
The reserve is 2 million.
Yeah, well, it was 1 million net.
Oh, well, yeah, it was. But yeah, when you take a $3 million project and you add 3 to 5% inflation each year on top of a 30 to 40% contingency for 10-year period, that number increases, which is why we redo this plan each year, because we look and say, yeah, this project's not 9.5, and you're not funding it now. You're only going to fund it in the year that you do it. So that 9.5 million.
And since we now use 30 to 50% lake water, why do we need all the wells we have now? Why do we have to replace a well? We can just eliminate a well.
So what we're doing is the side project with this is in the R&R funded portion, we're looking to remove 3 wells and replace with 1.
Okay,
Because we have wells 1, 2. and
okay, you're
3.
going to eliminate wells.
We're looking
Okay,
to eliminate
fine.
those. On the right-hand side, the wastewater system, over that 10-year period, it looks at right now about $320 million. That number is strictly based off the strategic plan discussion that we've had over the last 15 months. We just took that number and plugged it in because that's what everybody's seen. We all know that number is going to be adjusted over the next 6 to 8 months. We've also added in gravity main rehab. These used to be cash funded, but they're generally $7 to $10 million. So we're funding cash at $6 million a year. I can't get those projects done. Plus they have a lifespan of 50 plus years. So page 21 puts it all together. This is the full picture of everything we've talked about. This is the water system bonding or financing, wastewater system financing, water system cash fund, wastewater system cash funded. Total 10-year plan, 632 million. Of that amount, there's 46 million we have cash on hand, between $25 million from an existing bond and $21 million of cash from R&R projects that have been put on hold. So that number is just under 600 million for the full 10 years.
I think we can anticipate on wastewater treatment plant number 1 that the current design that's underway was at a 10% level. We're going to reduce that 226 substantially, and I hope we're looking upwards of $100 million less in that
I'm hopeful that we're shooting around 150 million max for that plant. No promises because of everything in the world going on, but yeah, nothing's gonna be gold plated. We're gonna make sure it lasts 50+ years, but we're not gonna gold plate it because there's no need. Now, keep in mind on page 21, this is not we're gonna go out today and we get a $600 million bond at once. This is over a 10-year period, so there is a gradual increase. Page 22 kind of summarizes the total system. So when you think about 632 million and the massive amount of money that is, keep in mind the entire women's division system is about $2 billion replacement value. That's all 3 treatment plants, all 5 water plants, all give or take 200+ miles of pipeline, roads, and the whole 9. So this 10-year plan replaces about 31% of the system. The rest of the system is in the future. Now, the good thing is on the left side of the pie graph, those items that are grayed out go with on the right towards the bottom. The next identified set of major rehab is in 2050. What that means is right now you have AC water lines and you have treatment plant number 1, major items. Everything else is relatively minor. In 2050 is when you're going to start having to look at some of the PVC that was put in at that time, 75 years ago. Also going to have to look at wastewater plant 2. So, and like Metro said last night, 2050, not worried about it. But keep in mind, I don't want y'all to think right now, we're not seeing anything like, okay, we need this 600 million. Then in 5 years, we know another 600 million, but we're not telling you. This is what we see until the major projects till 2050. All right, everything after this in the presentation is reference material, where we got quotes from, more stuff about contracts, asset management, so on and so forth. But right now, there is no action. The R&R funded portion will be discussed next month when we talk about the O&M budget. The ask number 2 for the supplemental agreements will be later here sometime. Since we've got everybody up to speed on everything and the wastewater strategic plan phase 2 is underway, we'll be looking sometime in the next, 3 to 6 months to bring supplemental agreements for the AC lines in the strategic plan too. Quick and a lot of talking, but if you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer this month or in coming months as well. So.
Anybody have any questions for Chris right now? Carla?
On page 27, does that say that you are planning on a $70 million bond in 24?
Correct. Right now, what we're looking at, so what you'll see on page 27 is this is just same question. What are you looking at? So in 24 would be the first water system bond. Okay. That bond would be for the first set of AC water line replacements.
Now, are you going to be able to get that through the state, or are we going to have to go out?
To be determined of that.
It'll be determined, and it's, yeah, SRF funds are probably not likable at this point. Defund is possible, but the problem with defund is you used to be able to get the money any time of the year. Now it's set that you have to apply by November and you can only get it the May or June of the next year.
Yeah, and as you know, MUD 2 and MUD 40 bought out of their last 2 bonds. We have accumulated enough money to handle our 5.8% on a $50 million bond, because you were telling us 25 million, then 50 million, and now it's 70 million.
Well, yeah.
So we don't have enough money to do 5.8 to buy out of the bond at 70 million.
Okay.
So are you gonna do 2 bonds?
So I think what's being envisioned at this point is a series of bond issues over time. This would be the first.
Okay, well,
All would be paid for with wholesale water sewer rates. So it's not going to be,
okay, there'll be, so we won't have to bond.
No.
No MUD would have to bond.
No.
Okay, fine, thank you.
yeah, it's by far the most efficient
Good.
way to do it.
Then we can put our reserve towards replacement of our current system that
Exactly.
we have depreciated over the years.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's wonderful.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Anybody have any other questions? A lot of information. Sure we'll have other questions later on. Item number 13, update on Spring Creek. You have any comments there?
Page 37, 38. There's an update from the project manager on that. That's, I think there's a.
We have a meeting on next month,
Is it? Yeah.
May 2nd. Where's the location of that? Has been determined yet?
Township.
Township office. Okay.
One of
Bob, any
the
questions?
critical questions that I had on the Spring Creek was trying to find an agreement with the Rice University, the solar powered people and the developer of the other property, Birch Creek, I think it is. How is that coming?
I have nothing to do with the Spring Creek study. So whatever information's in the packet's all I have. So I can pass along though and see if Ed can give us an update. We can email you.
So Dan is in charge of that.
Dan's aware of it. Matt Barrett is the flood management division manager.
Looks like that Spring Creek meeting is just going to be an open house.
Yes.
And I wondered if anybody from Rice or the developer might be there. They seem so aggressively against any development in there that
Yeah.
it would be useful to be able to talk with them further.
I can ask the question, but I'm pretty sure they would not be there, but I'll ask. At least they can extend an invitation, right?
How many of our staff will be attending?
I'll be there.
You're gonna attend?
All right.
And it's 6 to 8, I believe, and it's kind of a come and go. They're gonna have like 30-minute presentations. So if you missed right at 6, there'd be opportunities to see the kind of the same thing.
What is the outcome that they hope to achieve from this meeting? It just information that to give out to the people and hope to get support, or what?
Yes.
Do you have anything beyond that?
Part of it will be to maybe elevate it to a higher level with some of our elected officials. Some of the movers and shakers in government. I've sent out an invitation to Steve Toth's office. I've talked with them to give them a private meeting. Commissioner Nowak, I know we're working on Brandon Creighton and county judge. So this is a way to try to get public interest, but also engage our elected officials to maybe help us with some of the more complex tasks that need to be done, like working with Rice and the developers in Waller County. And that's sort of the way I see it.
What about Harris County?
Harris County, I can't remember. Of course, we have the Harris County Flood Control District as a partner. But as far as elected officials in Harris County, I don't remember seeing those on our list.
Well, you know, Pickle used to be over Creekside. I don't know who was the new commissioner there. I mean, he'd be good to be there.
Good point, yes.
Anything else, Bob? All right, item 14, received the attorney report. Oh, Brian.
So legislative sessions, mainly what's been on the main topic of discussion, the attorney's report. Don't want to kind of repeat what we went through on the trustee meeting if you'll have a chance to watch that, but there's a number of bills that we're watching very closely. There's a hearing this morning and natural resources in the House. A lot of bills on there, one of which I visited with Eric about. It's a bit troubling. Notification regarding fire hydrants when they go out, that could put an obligation on public water suppliers to do potentially more than once a day inspection of all of our hydrants. We've got a lot of them. So we're watching that one closely, as well as the number of ones that I mentioned at the trustee meeting. think I mentioned there that there've been around 8,000 bills introduced, which is about 15% increase over the last session. And last session was about 500 bills over the previous session. So there's a lot of bills flying around out there. We're trying to keep track of as many as we can, attend as many hearings as we can, and see where things shake out. House is still moving very slow. They have only passed out of about 5,500 to 6,000 bills introduced in the House. We've been about 30 that have passed so far.
30.
Usually about 15 over the course of the entire session. Usually about around 15% of bills pass, about 85% don't. So you can see that's a really low number. We anticipate that will pick up, but the House has been moving pretty slowly. A lot of discussion this session has been jammed up with the competing tax bills between the House and the Senate. There's also been a lot of time spent on the school voucher proposal. And that's sucking up a lot of oxygen as well. So it's kind of pushing other things behind.
What's the time frame on the remaining time for this?
So the session ends at the end of May. So anything in our world would have to, if it was going to pass, would pass by the end of May. The governor does have the authority and has many times called special sessions, but they can only be for specific items that are on his agenda. So let's say the House and the Senate can't agree on a tax plan in a session without it, he would absolutely call a special session. I anticipate that could call one on vouchers, but is he going to call one on a bill in the water bill universe? Probably not. So things that impact us would likely have to pass or fail by the end of May.
Okay.
So there's a lot of greenhouse gases being created in the legislative chambers.
Yeah.
We have Steve there watching us.
But it's a long slog as it is every session. So
But we have Steve watching our back.
he is very active. That's all I have on the attorney's report.
All right, thank you.
You're up for the next one.
Item 15, consider adoption of resolution concerning development of district status for 2023.
That's a standard item that we have each year. Y'all's status did not change according to LJA. You are still a developed district, which means you're subject to the 3.5% rollback rate that you have been in prior years. So we have to adopt that resolution each year.
So move.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. All right, item 16, is consolidation with Mud Sticks. You wanted on this on the agenda.
Yes, as you know, in November 2014, the Mud 2 residents of Mud 2 and 40 approved the consolidation, which by all accounts, I think has been a very successful consolidation so far. And back in 2021, we again made this 20-page report proposing the merger of Mud 1 and Mud 6. And I think out of the 600 or so votes that were cast, it was defeated by a mere 14 votes. So I would like to see us try again. And I think we learned some lessons from the last attempt. And I'm asking the board to approve this month just a study on the merits of consolidating again. It's non-binding. No, yes.
Yeah, as I tried to comment at the end of the last meeting, we didn't have complete approval by all board members of Mud 6 last time.
Yeah.
So we had an active anti-group, which made a difference.
Right.
And I don't think unless we have a tacit approval by all of the directors of MUD 6 that we ought to go forward.
Well, I know with certainty that there's one director.
Then I wouldn't, I would propose that we just put that aside for a while.
Well, MUD 6 will be discussing it later today.
Yeah, and it's quite an expense to do it, by the way.
Well, I don't think,
Staff expense and the election expense.
well, and that is true. But also then the savings, I think, are now approaching about $100,000 a year. And you can ask Woodlands Water, do they see much difference between the agendas of the two MUDs?
And they're all paid, they paid off all the bonds also.
Yeah. And so
I would like to see the consolidation, but the results of the attempts that we have made, the first two being consolidation of MUD 2 and 46, when there were only High Oaks.
Yeah.
Failed twice because a couple people decided they didn't like it. And I tried to say, well, the point I'm making is I would not be in favor of it even going forward unless we have complete concurrence by MUD 6 directors.
well,
That's my opinion.
I think if you're trying to get 100% concurrence of anything,
Well, we have it here.
I think there's enough people, and I've talked to several directors on MUD 6. And I think at least 3 of them are in favor of investigating consolidation. And I can name
Well, that-
But
at
that's the
least,
same three, like 3 we had last time also.
That's what we had last time. And the 2 went out and worked against consolidation.
well,
And they
one of
succeeded.
them is no longer there, so.
Well, I understand.
So.
But do we have 4? Do we have
I
4?
haven't talked
Yeah,
to,
okay.
When is MUD 6 meet?
this afternoon at 1:30, I believe, is that, or is that tomorrow?
Of
Tomorrow,
course, it would be
Yeah.
very advantageous to the staff to start consolidating MUDs.
well, I don't think we have anything to lose by studying it. And if we decide not to look at it again, then there's no point of MUD 6 even discussing it. I mean, the idea is kind of originating here and basically with me. And
I think I have to agree with Hartley. I mean, I think it's a great idea. And I would support it. I think all of us would support it again, but I don't want to go through the exercise and go through the same thing. we
And
went
fail.
last time. So I would say we see what they have to say about it.
well,
And if we get a consensus from them, then I think we should go forward.
well, I think I'll be very candid in saying why it failed. One was the lack of publicity. Too few people knew about it. And quite frankly, the language on the ballot, where we had this legal terms of art that Brian and I have talked about, where it said included the unlimited ability to raise taxes. And if we proceed again, I'll be on Brian's tail that we're going to use the language in MUD 2 and MUD 40.
Well, if we did it, you take the same, you did extensive work on the consolidation last time. Would you be willing to do that just for a study?
Yes, because updating this is a whole lot simpler than doing the original study first time around. So it's basically taking this 20-page document and cutting and pasting with new information.
So, okay, well, we can put it on the agenda to see if we want to go forward then next month.
I make a motion that we,
So Bob, we don't have an item for action. It's just discussion today. So I think if the board doesn't have any objection, you as a director can put some things together and come back and bring it to the board for action. We wouldn't.
Well, I would certainly like to have informal support to do this. I don't want to waste my time doing it. If,
Yeah, informally, I'm in favor of you going ahead to the study and putting it on the agenda next time for action.
Sounds like it's one-sided. I'd like to have a buy-in from MUD 6 and a commitment that they want to study this further. And from my perspective, I don't think 6 really had understood that the size of the opposition or actively tried to convince people to vote for it. And it's very sad that it failed by 20 votes.
yeah, no, I mean,
There was a lot of merit to it. I don't think that if we were defined the actual financial savings that have evolved from the merger of 2 and 4 and 40. And I think if that's better known and a more active approach to the residents of 6, you would be successful. But I don't see the support beyond, MUD 1 here. And I mean,
well, I've talked to at least 3 directors,
okay,
and they're generally in favor of at least exploring the merger consolidation again.
what are the objections from the other 2 directors? Can we meet those or at least
I don't know what their objections are. I think they're probably more personal than they are.
I think we need to identify those and address them and rather than being surprised at the end, oh, well, it failed. It shouldn't have failed if we had had good buy-in with 6.
Partly good.
Yeah.
I think I got his attention earlier. Anyway, in general, I obviously support this because it makes good logical sense to consolidate when you can. My question to our attorney is, let's say the MUD 6 as it's reconfigured here, election wise, what if the board 4-1 says very clearly, we are in support of this, and another director just on his own just kind of thumb their nose at the rest of the board and go out there and campaign actively against it? Is that, I want to know legally where that's at. The board says, we support this, we believe in it.
Yes, I mean, they're a private citizen and they can go out and actively campaign against it. I think one thing that hasn't been touched on in the discussion today, as I was just thinking about, is that it also ended up that the township and corporation election ended up on the same ballot. And I think there was a real concern that there was confusion in the voting community about the difference between the consolidation vote and the incorporation vote, and some speculation that there were folks that went in to vote for no on incorporation that also just voted no on consolidation because they didn't really get the difference between the two. And that could have driven up the no vote. Now, speculation, but I mean, you got to think there was probably some impact there of having those 2 items on the same ballot.
Yeah. Charlotte,
Jeff, you and Mr. Lilac are both active in the Grogan's Mill Village Association, and this is a Grogan's Mill particular MUD. Have you got any feeling from the Grogan's Mill Village Association about whether they would go along with it?
I'm no longer active in the Grogan's Mill Village Association, but Bruce Cunningham was a former president of it. And in the previous attempt, the Village Association was highly supportive.
Well, was the Grogan's Mill Association in supporting? We gave a briefing to
Yes.
them.
The
They
last
were
time
supportive.
around, they
Yeah,
were
okay.
highly supportive.
And those are two that if we get support from,
Well, the Grogan's Point Association, they have a separate group.
yes,
I've been on that board off and on through the years. We're in support and the reason is, it's just kind of logic, business wise, to save 100,000 a year now going forward, many, many, many years. And most of those folks understood that pretty well and were in favor of it. I think it's just this kind of outlier director. That's why I asked that question, who was muddying the water a little bit. There's certainly a good reason to do this, so. And most people support it, and that group could be approached. That's 520 some odd homes. And most of those could be approached, and Bob and I have lived there 21 years and Bob 15. We can probably get this thing, them to support it.
I mean, what a lot of residents,
What was your motion?
There's not gonna be.
We can't have a motion?
Yeah.
We can't. Okay, well, we can continue
But
discussing
we
this,
can-
but
we
I think
can
we need to get more
informally-
feedback from what's.
we can informally encourage us to go forward for the vote next month.
Okay,
And I'm saying that I personally am in favor of going forward.
I am
vote
too. I
next
just don't
month.
want to spend a lot of time and money that if we can't
Yeah.
get full support of us six. Okay. Move on, item number 18, general manager's report.
7.
Oh, I'm sorry, 17, excuse me.
Also probably.
Consider an act on the district customer communication. We've been working on that with John Geiger. I think he sent you a rough draft. And hopefully after, we're looking at maybe the next couple of weeks, once we get our board lined out,
Okay.
sending it out.
so Mud 6 and Mud 47, I think it is, have gotten out their annual report. What's holding ours up?
Well, for one thing, we're gonna have 2 new members, or we're gonna change, so part of that will not be accurate if we send it out today.
Unknown caller.
I'm the one that made the decision to hold it off until we decide what's gonna happen with our board,
Yeah,
and then we'll have
majority-
the accurate information out there.
Majority of the data on the handout is done. It's just a matter of buttoning up these last pieces and then we'll be able to
Okay.
send it out.
Okay.
There's another mode or two also that are about in the same time frame as you're, so you're not the last one.
All right, 18 is the general manager's report.
All right.
Eric,
Good morning.
good morning.
Just go over a couple things with you. I wanted to update you on the status of the One Water initiative that last month we talked about. One Water, or a township planning group, and talked about bringing it to the township. Township did look at it and voted in favor of resurrecting that organization. We have met with representatives of the township to talk about, kind of brainstorm what that might look like. And so we'll be working with them to try to get the One Water organization kind of resurrected. Wanted to update you a little bit on, you brought up last month, us looking at the ditches and looking at whether or not we ought to go back through this or through some other process. We met with the contractor that does the maintenance for the ditches and ponds and sat down with her and kind of put them on notice as they go through this phase of mowing, which they started about 2 weeks ago. They started in Harper's Landing, but they'll be going through all of the woodlands. As they go through that, one of the things that they do is they provide a report of condition of the district ditches in the various districts. And so once that information is in, we'll be looking at that, cross-referencing it with the information from the previous binder and seeing what might be necessary to be addressed as far as remediation or anything like that. So we'll be kind of monitoring that once we get the report in from Champions.
So are these mowers qualified to be able to?
Absolutely, that's what they do. They do. This this is not a landscaping company in the back of a pickup. This is a Champions Hydraulic, a very, very big and capable outfit. And they do all the maintenance for the ditches in all of the woodlands.
And I think it's not the mowers, it's the supervisor, I think, that does the analysis after the mowing is done.
Good point. It's not necessarily the guy. I mean, he would report to the supervisor, but you have the guys on the machines, but you also have a supervisor that actually runs the ditches and cross references with what his guides are seeing. So,
And they will be taking pictures of
yes,
items they consider of
Yes.
concern.
and giving us a report. That's correct. So that is in motion. Let's see, I wanted to update you a little bit on something we received from Montgomery County Appraisal District, which is their updated salary proposal for the coming year. They made some adjustments. There's been some turnover there at the appraisal district, and we received a report from them that kind of spells out what the, I think it's on-
It's in effect.
it is, and it's on page 40, 50,
50.
starts on 49.
Mhm.
Is there anything, Jan?
We just changing titles. The prior chief appraiser had 2 deputy chief appraisers. You don't normally have that in an appraisal district, so she has changed the name. Or their titles, I'm sorry. And some of the appraisers and clerical, that there's just, and by law, they have to let us know that of what they're doing.
And
And that's basically what it is.
our understanding is it will not change the budget.
It's not gonna change the bottom line.
Right.
I don't have. Overhead.
That's
Just a couple more things. Just wanted to point out some, I guess, exciting tenure announcements. Maureen, this last month, surpassed 25 years here at Willis Ratings. Like the recognition, but you're getting,
And Tony, 41.
and Tony Rendon, 41 years.
Wow.
He's the only guy that has longer than I have.
Well, considering Maureen is only 32, it's
That's right,
pretty
yeah.
amazing.
She started young.
You got that big race.
That's right. Wanted to point out in the packet, there's a couple articles that are kind of pertinent to the discussions. One is lead service line, which we're going to be talking more about here in the next year, over the next year. PFAS, which was some chemicals that it'd be interesting for you to read if you hadn't. And then there's some examples of some things that John Geiger's putting out in as part of the strategic communication plan as well. So there's some examples of that. I just wanted to give you a couple quick updates from the trustees. The Public Education Committee is going to be meeting on the 26th. As you heard earlier, there's some pretty significant infrastructure things coming down the pipe over the next few years. And we'll be working with SJRA to try to build, and the PEC to build up a public outreach campaign to really educate the customers on what's going to be happening over the next few years. And then I did want to report that we did come to terms with TACUS. So we will be putting together the any remaining billing, and then also prorating the proceeds that they paid for the damages as well. So we'll be prorating that back to the MUDs that were affected. And then lastly, the trustees did receive recommendation from the Personnel Committee, who recommended some changes to the WWA holiday schedule. And so we'll be making changes that was approved by the trustees, which will add in 2023 Veterans Day, and then 2024 and going forward, it'll add MLK, President's Day and Veterans Day, and then remove the floating holiday that exists today. So that'll be going forward. That created some consistency with the area municipalities as far as benefits and where we were on holidays. So with
Okay.
that was all I had.
All right, any questions for the general manager? All right, thank you, Eric. 19 trustees report. Anything else? Ed?
Pages 45 and 46. And General Manager Peterson has covered most of those items. But I would like to highlight a couple of them. One, the vote on giving 2 extra days of paid leave, paid vacation, paid leave, holidays, okay? Was a 9-1 vote. My vote was against it. I spent 6 years getting MCAD down to 10 days. I spent 25 years in the personnel committee, keeping it at 10 days, and I didn't see any reason to add, particularly since I surveyed some commercial areas. One of them said they give their people 6 days of paid vacation, paid. Now, I'm very happy in the vote. And I knew the way it was going to go, and didn't defer it to try to make any other kind of action to change it, because the personnel committee had studied it and they came up with a recommendation. And I think that they acted in good faith. And I appreciate that the staff has operated under 10 days. And we haven't lost too many, because the county, for example, has 14 days of vacation days, not counted as vacation. And that was one of the items where you could lose people to the county, particularly the appraisal district, and the other areas of the county. And of course, we've already mentioned Marine's outstanding service to our board here. With having to deal with 50 directors, anyone on the staff who deals directly with directors ought to be complimented. And those are my comments. Any questions?
No, sir. Thank you very much. All right, item 20, recess in the closed session. There's no need for that.
Necessary.
All right. Item 21, reconvene. This takes us back to item number 10. Get the resignation of Director Bosnack and Long from the Board of Directors. So you're leaving us.
Yes, unfortunately, in many ways, it's been a difficult decision, difficult for us to accomplish, but I do want to say something, is that it's been an absolute pleasure to work with this board. The level of knowledge and professionalism on this board is outstanding. And that really is comforting to be on a board that, the collective knowledge is very, very good. And, and to work with the staff here has been just outstanding. It's been wonderful to be able to do that. And Jim and I even go way back to the California days, and when I retired 21 years ago out there in that area. So long-standing relationships, and that was nice. And it's just been good, and I've been treated very well. And I thank you, each and every one of you, for that. So it's hard. It's hard to leave. And so I hadn't made up my mind if I want to run for a mud over there in that other area. I think they need some help. Believe me, I got to talk to you and see who's in charge over there, and some other stuff. I've already running for the homeowners board.
Well, that's good.
My name's on the ballot, for better or for worse, because I just think common sense has to rule. You just got to be able to do like you do in the DSC, and the service I had before is just. So anyway, it's been great. Thank you, Rich, every one of you.
Well, I think it's been an honor to serve with you too, Jeff, and your knowledge and what you've brought to this board, and what you've done. It's gonna we truly miss. And we appreciate everything that you've done and the leadership that you provided us with your experience. So wish you best of luck.
Thank you.
And, you will truly be missed.
We're walking distance of the grandkids.
Also, I'd like to make a comment about personal relationship I have with Helen and Jeff. I'll never forgive Jeff. The reason I live in Grogan's Point is because of him. When we first moved here from Washington, DC, I got to meet Jeff, and we even talked at one point going in, working together in business. But I was no longer interested in doing that. And the only criticism I have of Jeff is his golf game is better than mine. But I've put
I
up
played
with
golf
it.
with both you guys.
Yeah.
I can accept that.
And Helen, I'll never forget you coming to my rescue, or very close to it, when we're walking drainage ditches and I stepped into what was essentially was quicksand and getting deeper and deeper. And she was getting ready to dial 911 to bail me out as we're doing this ditch inspection. But we've had wonderful time collaborating on wastewater issues, and so I consider both of you really, really good friends, and outside of the mud, and going to miss you both.
Thank you, Bob.
And quite a run. We've had a
Yeah.
success, and I certainly understood more about the drainage area, but than I would have just looking at maps. It was, of course, I guess we're not allowed to do that anymore. Just go out and check on the ditches. We have to have a whole team with us now, which is probably a good idea. It would have made terrible headlines to have lost a mud director in a ditch. I didn't even know they had quicksand here where I grew up. It was all, a rocky bottomed any creek. So that was kind of a surprise watching Bob slowly go down. Anyway, I appreciate all the support the staff has provided, and getting all our directors' packets together, and the support on our meetings, and all. You've really been an amazing team. And so this has been an opportunity for me to continue working and being involved on a semi-volunteer basis with an area that I've felt very strongly for, and water resources and drainage, and I think the MUDs are on a good future track to protect the woodlands and continue to make it a very desirable place to live. It will be interesting to see how the township comes together in support of the MUDs now that they're starting the One Water task force again. That was one of my disappointments, that nothing really substantial came out of those couple of years that we had that task force. So the one message I'd like to leave is make that happen with the new One Water task force. Make the township step in and take some responsibility and work with them, and ensure that the woodlands remains a really viable place to live, and people don't have to worry about the next storm coming through. Thank you for providing the years that I've had on this board. I miss you. I'm moving inland though, and there we'll have to worry more about forest fires than floods, but it'll be an interesting challenge. look forward to that, but know that I'll be thinking about you as well.
So we
I
can,
wish
we're
we-
gonna leave a number, we can call you in January when it's, got 70 here and you're. Been an honor to work with you, Helen, and we appreciate everything you brought to the board and what you did on the 1-1 task force also, and you truly are gonna be missed, even if you are an LSU grad.
Well, I wish we could vote to not accept their
I was gonna
resignation.
say the same thing.
Yeah.
Well, I guess I thought that we reluctantly accept the resignation of the 2 board members
Second.
in favor.
uh,
Right. You guys
Since,
don't oppose
since they're
it, though?
moving
Yeah.
out of the woodlands.
All right, item 11, consider appointment of new directors.
This is, y'all gone through this before. It's really at the board's discretion. How you want to handle that? If you want to consider some potential candidates internally, if you want to go external with that search, it's really at the discretion of the board. There's not legal requirements for that. Legally, they just have to be qualified to serve on the board. We talked about some legislation that's pending. Don't know what its potential outcome would be, but there's legislation that would change the qualification requirements, that you would have to be a homeowner. You could not be a renter in a district. You'd have to be a property owner. So that may be something that you keep in mind or not. I mean, it's pending legislation that could or could not pass, but just FYI on that. But as long as they meet the legal requirements, y'all could consider candidates and next month if you wanted to. Or you could go at a more slow pace.
Okay,
So we can put it on the agenda for next month.
Yes.
And we already have 3 resumes
yes,
submitted. And did you want those people who are present to comment
okay,
today?
yeah, that's be fine if they want to. Do you have any comments? Andrew Freeman and Cindy Reynolds.
Andrew Freeman. Live in Panther Creek, property owner. I've been in Woodland since 2007. So I have a wife and 2 kids. Grew up in California, went to graduate school in Denver, Colorado. And I've been in working various jobs here, but I'm mainly in the finance. But right now I work for Weber Construction, which is a heavy civil construction company right here in Hughes Landing. So. And then why I want to be on the board, I guess, would be just recently I got back from Rwanda. Our parent company, owned by Frobe, which is Spanish. I volunteered on a water project in Rwanda, and you don't realize until I tell my kids and my wife, you don't realize what it's like to have to go fetch water in buckets and take them back to your house, where we just, are blessed enough to turn on the faucet and you get clean drinking water out there. So that's, and Walt contacted me about it and kind of fit in where I was wanting to be. So, and I've also volunteered at the Panther Creek Village Association since 2017. Den leader with PAC 772 with Cub Scouts. So that's my resume in a nutshell.
Okay,
Worked closely with Andrew for a couple of years now. I also live in Panther Creek, a homeowner. I think I'm 4th generation Montgomery County. My grandfather built a house in the Woodlands in 74. I left for a short period of time to go to college. I was in Houston. I graduated from the University of Houston, where I met my husband. We were going to raise little city kids, and then we couldn't do it. So we ran back here when they were very, very young, 3. And he's been here ever since. We're raising the 5th generation. I grew up in just outside of Rogan's Point. I had to swim out during the floods in the 90s, right when the mall opened. Went to the public schools here. I'm president of the Panther Creek Village Association right now. I've worked with a couple of you. I worked really hard behind the scenes to get some new township directors elected. I would love to be part of this if I could be, add value in any way, but also the reason I do those things in the community is to help other people understand who's in charge of what. Well, there's so much miscommunication about what does the county do? What does the township do? What can the school districts actually control and what's controlled at the state level? So what I try to do is get involved so that I can share that information with others around us. If we have elections going on where things are being decided with 14 and 20 votes, it's really important that people know why we do what we do. So that's why I'm involved.
Okay. And we'll try to get the other candidate here next month. So,
Right, so we'll put items on here in case y'all do want to appoint folks next month. We'll probably put an item on the agenda also in case y'all want to go into closed session.
Yes, please.
okay,
We'll add that as well. Personnel.
all right, so discuss any matters on future agenda, so we'll,
Yeah,
Hold
the consolidation study
yes.
is one. And I think we need a recognition of the outstanding contributions by the two people who resigned. And presentation of award. We'll have plaques by then.
All right. And then election of the new board members.
Yeah, all the standard stuff.
Okay, anything else? All right. We have a motion to adjourn in a second.
So moved.
I'll second.
Favor say aye. All right, motion carries. Thank you very much, everybody.